I'm on a mission to build a wildly successful furniture making business here in Australia, and I'm laying all of my finances on the table with uncomfortable transparency, which is something I haven't seen done before on YouTube. At the end of each video, I break down my time, cost, and profit so you get to see where the money comes from. It sometimes doesn't come from. Now, I've drawn up this design about 4 times because the plywood that I was originally going to use was 18 millimeters, but now the one that I got is 16 millimeters. Last year I made a bathroom vanity based on someone else's drawings, and I was able to literally build it to the drawing, and it was the best thing ever. So for this project, I want to make sure my drawing is 100% before I start actually cutting any material. This is hands down the most expensive plywood I've ever touched. It is $1,400 for 3 sheets. So while I was picking up this plywood, I said to the supplier, why is this so expensive? And he said, these days, it's all the laminate stuff. It's all the plastic on particle board. So you can get Tassie oak, but it won't be real, actual wood Tassie oak. That's what's available on the shelves. Asking for something like this, it's becoming a bit of a specialty request. Next up, I'm actually going to be cutting the pieces to size and figure out the order of operations, because that's going to help me figure out which size will define the next step. I'm going to start with this bottom piece, this bottom strip, and then this top strip. Those two need to be the same. I'll start with that, do the sides, and then I have a box. So as long as that box is square, everything works around that box. Interesting. These veneers are using some kind of Australian hardwood, and I can tell that because these are gum veins. I know a second ago I said I was building to measurement, so surely you wouldn't need some pieces to inform the next. But realistically, a lot of your cuts aren't as obedient as you want them to be, and some parts can be a little more flexible with their measurements. This is usually based on where they fit into the build and the room, and all of this needs to be considered before any cuts are made. And doing this means you rely less on measurements and cutting techniques. If I was able to cut all these parts out on a dialed-in CNC machine, it'd be different. But marking an exact location with a tape measure, then cutting that exact location with a track saw, and doing it multiple times around a board, those are not winning odds. So find the places that can be a little squonk and get those close enough. Then focus your perfectionist energy on the parts that need to be exact and keep that list short. I have gone ahead and added the back panel to both of the boxes, and there's also this extending part which will help support the solid top, because there's going to be a cavity in this corner. Now I need to come up with a way of joining these boxes at, or do I actually? I am driving around today trying to locate some Vic Ash, because the person who I normally buy from is not stocking it anymore because it's become expensive, which I think could be related to the logging ban which is going on in Victoria. Now we are starting to actually feel the effects of it. So I'm here now at Brutal Timbers. These guys are becoming a bit of a preferred option for me. They have a lot of knowledge and good stock, and they're just decent to deal with. They probably won't have any of the timber, but maybe they can source it. Oh, it's stoked. So he can get it in for me, and because he knows the supplier that I used to go to, and I mentioned what I paid for it, he said he can do it around the same price. Stoked. I have just taken delivery of the timber, and I asked him for 15 meters worth of Vic Ash. But at the time, what I didn't say is how long I needed the length to be. But now with the pack open, I can see that the shortest piece is 3 meters, which is perfect. So I'm going to be able to get full length pieces across the 1.7 meters. I want to pause the video here real quick and talk about something that I think is so important. It should be included in every instruction manual of every jointer out there. You don't need your fence set at 90 degrees to get a good glue joint. In fact, if you are relying on your fence being at 90 degrees to get a good glue joint, then I would argue you are playing a very risky game. Instead, define how you want your boards glued up. then run the edges over the jointer, alternating the faces against the fence. As long as both faces of the board are flat and parallel, then the edges will always meet to make a perfect glue join. I didn't know this until much later on, and I could have built an entire kitchen in the time it's taken me trying to get that perfect 90. With the solid timber tops in clamps, I could start on the face frame. I chose to add it after everything had been assembled, but while I was doing this, I couldn't help but wonder if this would have been easier if I'd added the face frame to the plywood before cutting the parts, kind of like a veneer. Doing a little research, there seems to be two main ways to create an L-shaped solid top desk without going Nick Padula on it. You butt join or you cut a mitre. I went for the latter after watching a very helpful video on Stumpy Nubs' channel. It felt like the more relevant option in this scenario. Also, being able to cut this angle in one go with a good quality track saw meant that I could go for the more, in my opinion, decorative option while retaining accuracy in the cut. I also got to use a tool that's been sitting on my workbench for ages, and I've been wanting a reason to give it a go. I had a client give me this doweling jig after he had upgraded to a better tool. I haven't been able to use it to create a 90-degree corner yet, but it was perfect for this benchtop to create alignment pins. I know using something like dominoes or biscuits would be preferable for this because they will allow more movement left to right, but in this case I don't think it's going to be a problem with this miter joint because of the width. It's not that wide, so the amount of movement is going to be pretty minimal. Okay, so I now have the tops, the other ones behind me, the two parts, the two actual shelves, the joiner bits and a cover piece, and that's everything that's going to go into installing this. And it's that installation which is the next hurdle in this job. It's on the quote that I am not doing the installation of this. The client decided that they would take care of that themselves, but I'm not sure if it's them doing the install or if it's the builder. My concern around this, particularly if it's the building company, is that they would have a certain process in mind that all cabinet makers would follow. I most probably haven't built this in that same way, so I would need to provide them with some kind of instructions on how they should install this. But because I'm relatively new to this, I don't know how they would normally do that. In the coming days, the client's going to be coming through to the workshop to look at some potential stain options, and then we can have that conversation. On a side note, with that installation process, I know from having done these sorts of builds for building companies in the past that I've often overthought the process, and I've delivered it and then they've figured everything out because they are carpenters, they know what to do. So I'm hoping that that could also be the case. The client's come and gone. They've chosen to go with straight oil, which is awesome. I'm using this Livos product for the first time. I'm one coat deep so far, and so far it's all good. The other thing is that they are still definitely going to be doing the install themselves. I've offered to help them out a bit if they need, but it's not going to be a builder who's doing the install. But I've got one more thing that I want to do in this video, and that's a little extra something to give to this client when I deliver the shoe rack. In my last video, I introduced my new Omtech 60 watt CO2 laser, and I'm going to be using it in this video to engrave a cutting board. This is a piece of local African mahogany. I milled this up a couple years ago. I'm going to etch my logo into the underside of this and then give this to the client. And that way I just get to give them a piece that will hopefully sit in a visible part of their home that will be a talking point for anyone who comes and goes. And hopefully that'll bring me some more business. Okay, I've got the logo into Lightburn, but I don't know if I've done it properly. So I'm gonna just do a quick test cut to make sure that I'm engraving where I need it to engrave and not maybe in reverse. All right, that's what I thought might happen. So it's drawn the line, which is great, but I kind of wanted to engrave this internal section. Okay, I figured out what I was missing. Yeah, okay, there we go. Let's have a look. Okay, not quite what I want. I didn't want it to engrave the RL. All right, back to the drawing board. After a couple more attempts, I figured out what I needed to change to get the software to know what I wanted to do. Luckily at this stage, I'm still learning how to use this machine, so there's heaps of information out there to help solve my basic questions, so it didn't take too long to find. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, that came out awesome. So for this one, I did cross hatching instead of just the laser running in one direction. So I was doing horizontals and verticals. It's given a much cleaner result. It's going to take a bit of sanding to clean that up, but that's really good. I've been wanting to be able to do this for years, so it was a very special moment to finally be able to brand my work. If you're interested in getting your hands on an Omtech laser, I have an affiliate link below, and you can use code RobinLewisMakes to get 4% off all machines on Omtech Australia, excluding accessories. And with that, let's get to the numbers. All right, so this was one of the longer projects in terms of the start to end date. I mean, I didn't spend too much time on it, but it feels like it's just been part of my life for a very long time. My expenses were almost $1,500, and when you compare that to the income of $2,700, it's a bit of a higher ratio than I want. Normally, I like to shoot for around 1/3. And looking at the amount of time I put into this project, I was slightly over from what I quoted. I worked almost 20 hours on this and I quoted around 13. So that gives me a profit of $1,300, which is still a decent profit. But if I take that and divide that by my worked hours, I come up with an hourly rate of around $67. Not quite the $100 to $120 range that I aim for, but I have done worse in the past. So I'm still very happy I took on this job. Now the shoe rack and all the bits have been collected, but I don't know what it's gonna look like installed, and I don't know when that's gonna happen. In the interest of getting this video out, I just went ahead with it. But if you do wanna see what that final install eventually looks like, go ahead and subscribe and I will post the pictures as soon as I can. So while I didn't get the hourly rate in this video like I wanted, I'm gonna post a video up here where I did, and that was a very, very successful project.